Hello, everyone. Welcome to the, May 2024 Business Growth Roundtable, brought to you by NJBIA. And Anthony Arena is here to tell us a little bit about what's going on at NJBIA.
Thank you, Donna, very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are thrilled to have you. I'm working with an amazing group of talented women this afternoon. And also, for those of you who are new to NJBIA, we are the largest statewide business association here in New Jersey, and we represent about 1/4 of all businesses. We also offer custom development opportunities with visibility through our sponsorship events, magazine, as well as our podcast and television show. We do have also money-saving discounts with our partners, and we do have some great programs if you're looking for payroll, healthcare, training, 401k solutions, and our 24-hour HR support. Before I hand it over to the dynamic Donna, I just wanted to give you some information of upcoming events here at NJBIA. We have May 20th, State of the State of Manufacturing. This is a very big opportunity for those in the manufacturing industry. Everyone after down at the Capitol will head over to Cooper's Riverview. That's in Trenton between 2 and 4 p.m., which NJBIA will host, and you can meet those legislators out there to touch base with them and talk with them. We also have May 22nd, our healthcare symposium that's taking place at Pines Manor in Edison, New Jersey. And in June 4th, we have our environmental regulatory conference at Delta Hotels in Island, New Jersey. So please feel free to check out our website, njbia.org. And also, I'll drop my information in the chat for you to reach out to me and, just contact me with any questions or concerns or any sponsorship opportunities. And with that, I will turn it over to the marvelous Donna.
Oh, why, thank you, Anthony. Great to have you here with us as always. So I am Donna Miller. I am Chief Visionary Officer at C3 Workplace and founder of Donna Miller Business Growth Consulting, where for nearly 30 years, we've been helping companies accelerate their growth by providing support and advisory services around operations, business development, and finance. We allow growing teams and business owners to work smarter by focusing on that which truly drives the business forward, as opposed to all that administrivia we sometimes call it. Our clients know that by bringing us in to build systems that are efficient, connected, and executable by us or them, they are laying the foundation for a company that will run and grow without them involved in every little detail. So if you'd like to build a self-scaling business, reach out to me. Happy to jump on a call. Now, we love doing the Business Growth Roundtable, and I actually have to look. I don't know if we're in our 3rd or 4th year, but it's been a minute at this point. And as you can imagine, if you've done any kind of educational or event marketing, it takes an army to pull it off. So we're grateful that NJBIA have partnered with Rachel and I, and Rachel will tell you more about herself and her firm in a minute. But we also have some sponsors, and we're so grateful for their support. It's how we expand our audience and bring more value to everyone, because as we believe, a rising tide lifts all boats. So I want to first thank Kim Luthi, who is Director of Wealth Planning at Synthesis Wealth. It's hard to say. She has been a supporter of ours for quite some time, and she is a strong advocate for empowering all of us to live our best life through our financial planning and for planning for the unexpected things, and we all have those happen. In today's fast-paced world, mastering productivity isn't about doing more, it's about achieving meaningful results while maintaining your well-being. And this is one of the ways Kim helps her clients. So join Kim at her next event. It's a webinar where you'll delve into strategies and techniques that help you maximize your productivity. Achieve more, less stress. Who doesn't want a little bit more of that, right? So mark your calendars for May 29th, and Kim, I'm sure she'll drop the details in our chat, but register for Kim's webinar on May 29th. Also a sponsor, I think from day one, Cal Thomas, president of Sandler Training in Morristown. Now, in addition to helping companies with their sales training, Cal also spends a lot of time with leaders of teams and organizations to build the management and leadership skills they need to retain and manage valuable employees. I know, having grown a company, and I know Rachel can relate to this too, building that next level is super hard, especially when everyone's been looking to you. So Cal really does a great job of not only the sales training, which, by the way, Rachel, myself, and I believe Anthony are all President Club sales training members. We invested an appropriate amount of time and resources in improving our skills. And I know it's funny when I talk to my clients about when they're in the prospecting phase and they need to talk about money. It's like the hardest thing, but it's the most important thing. And I learned how to do that well at Sandler. So we thank Cal for his continued support of the Business Growth Roundtable. And I'm sure Cal is also here and he will put his information in the chat. Now, a tiny bit of housekeeping. We will have Q&A at the end of this session. We've got a great speaker. Rachel's going to tell you all about that in a minute. But I'm going to ask you, would you kindly put your questions in the Q&A versus the chat? We tend to have big groups. It gets a little unwieldy. We are recording this, yes, so you will get a copy of the recording. And next month, June, we will have Esther Polson, who will be talking to us about everyone's current favorite topic, artificial intelligence, unlock wild efficiency and avoid downfalls. I cannot wait for this webinar because I've been tinkering with ChatGPT and Copilot for quite some time now, and I think I'm running amok. So I'm really looking forward to our June event with Esther. So all of that said, let me hand the mic over to my fabulous co-host, Rachel Durkin, who will take it from here.
Thank you, Donna. And hello, everyone. I'm so happy you can all be here today. My name is Rachel Durkin. I'm with Paradigm Marketing and Design. We are a web marketing, branding, and sales enablement agency that specializes in working with clients with a complex sale, most often in the B2B professional services and nonprofit environment. So if you require a conversation to close a deal, not selling a widget, we can help you and your sales team shorten their sales cycle and increase the number of meetings they're having by building a marketing to sales infrastructure. One of the very many ways we do that, because we know on average it takes 9 to 13 touches to build trust in a brand and to drive a lead through your funnel. So we have to use many different outlets in order to ensure we are driving leads to the sales team and building brand awareness over time. One of those very important outlets is SEO. And so because SEO is an ever-changing machine, I think I heard a statistic that Google's algorithm changes slightly over 400 times a year. So Heather can confirm if that's right or not, but it is changing constantly. There was also a major Google update that came out recently that is turning a lot of SEO strategists on their head. Luckily for us, Heather Hamilton, who is a partner of Paradigms and a president of Well Optimized SEO, reads Google's updates for fun. She is well-versed in what is going on in the world of SEO and so respected that she has spoken at many major conferences for SEO enthusiasts, including the Collegiate Marketing Institute and she is part of the International Women in Tech SEO Conference. Heather has a very long experience with SEO. She has grown a meaningful business because she has been so successful for her clients. And I can say that working with her on our clients and on Paradigm's site, it works. She brings in leads. She creates a website that is going to be a sales machine. And so with that, I want to introduce Heather Hamilton to the stage, and she's going to talk to us about SEO today.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, take it away, Heather.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me. As Rachel mentioned, I'm an SEO consultant specializing in SEO for businesses, small and large. I do have some experience in higher education, health and wellness, and your money, your life topics are my specialty, which we're going to get into a little bit here. So I'm going to go ahead and share some slides with you here, and we're going to talk through a little bit about SEO. I'm going to try to keep it brief when it comes to covering SEO in general and talk a lot about the recent update and the impacts on businesses. So let me see. All righty. Okay, so search engine optimization. Search engine optimization is the practice of enhancing your online presence and visibility when people are searching for what you have or what you offer. Not to be confused with search engine marketing, SEM, which is more of the paid search side. So if you Google something and you see the sponsored, that's paid search versus SEO is organic. So just want to get that definition out of the way. Most people here probably know that, but just in case. But the thing about search engine optimization is it's not just about driving traffic to your site to increase user counts and numbers. It's actually about increasing leads and customers and driving the right kind of traffic to your site. And SEO gives us an opportunity to hit people at all parts of their customer journey. So from discovering your brand to being ready to buy, SEO plays a part in all parts of that marketing funnel. Now, I'm going to share a few stats with you because we got to mention why SEO is important and why all of this matters. And first and foremost, there are 3.5 billion Google searches a day. Google is actually a verb. Google is huge. And so SEO is extremely important for reaching our ideal customer, right? 68% of all online experiences begin with a search engine. Now, I do need to mention that Google is not the only search engine. There's also Bing, there's DuckDuckGo, there's various other search engines, but Google owns more than 90% of the share here of the market. So we're mostly following Google's lead when it comes to best practices for search engine optimization. And that's why this update is such a big deal. And what happened with Google is what we're talking about today. Now, customers are 70% more likely to visit your location if you have a physical location, if you have a complete Google business profile. And we're going to talk a little bit about local SEO and how a Google business profile works and how it fits into all this as well. And last stat here is search engines drive 1,000% more traffic to websites than organic social media. So while social media is necessary most of the time and a great tactic for nurturing and brand awareness, search engines are going to drive way more relevant traffic to your website and actually get people to click on your products and your services and help them figure out more about you and purchase. All right, here's the last stat I'm going to share with you. It's a shocker. All of this is important, and almost every business has a website or should. But 96.55% of pages get no traffic from Google whatsoever. A huge amount of websites on the internet do not get any visitors, no traffic. They're not showing up in Google. They're not getting indexed or crawled. And that's because, of a few reasons. One of them being SEO elements are not implemented, but another one is user experience isn't first. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how to make sure that you get indexed and recognized and found on Google, as well as the impacts of the recent algorithm on this. So I have to talk quickly about types of SEO because I think when we think about search engine optimization, we think a lot about keywords. Right? We think about what are the keywords people are Googling and how do I put them on my page? That is a very small percentage of what SEO is, although it is a very important part, and it does kind of start there and lead a lot of the strategy. There is much more to SEO than keywords. So first and foremost, we start out in SEO with technical SEO. And so this is kind of the foundation of your strategy and your website. This includes everything from your website architecture to canonicalization, which means if you have two pages that are similar, telling Google which one's more important, or this could also be content syndication. So if you have like blogs on other websites, making sure they're canonicalized back to you so you're getting all the credit for them and all the SEO juice, if you will. This is crawling and indexing. So making sure that your site is able to be first crawled by bots like Google and then indexed and put into their kind of indexing for people to see. Those are included in technical SEO as well. And you can find a lot of this information on Google Search Console, but there are other various SEO tools that we use as well to make sure that everything's working technically. Technical SEO also includes your site speed. It includes your response codes. So are there any broken links on your website? Are there redirects? Can people find what they need? What's happening when people call certain URLs? All of this is super important for ranking on search engines. And it's often overlooked because we're really focused on keywords. But technical SEO is a very, very important foundational aspect of your SEO strategy. And that's where, if you're doing a website redesign or a migration or a new website, this is going to be super, super important. After you've got your foundational technical SEO elements in place, then you can move into the other aspects of SEO. On page is the next one, and that's probably the one you know most about. So this is keyword research. figuring out what people are searching and who your competitors are and what they're saying about the keyword and how you can get yourself ranking for it. Your HTML structure also matters here. So making sure your headers are all aligned and the keywords are in the right places. Accessibility is actually a huge part of on-page SEO that people don't think about a lot. So are the color contrasts, do they make sense? Are your images, do they have alternative text? So if someone is using a screen reader, and they can't see the images on your screen, can they understand what they are through alternative text on your images? And this is actually really important in fields like higher education and government. It's actually a kind of a big deal, but it is a big deal in general for accessibility, but it's definitely a compliance issue in some industries. So it's definitely one you want to pay attention to. Additionally, user experience. How hard is it to find stuff on your website? What's your navigation look like? What are the links like? If they're on mobile versus on a computer, is like this giant pop-up in the way of what they need to see. Additionally, content depth. And these last two are the biggest things we're going to be talking about today with the algorithm updates. So looking at the depth of your content, does it answer all the questions about the topic? Can the customer find what they need? Are they getting the information that they need? And are you displaying EEAT, which I'm going to go through next, which is experience, expertise, authority, and trust. We'll sit with that one for a minute. The other two are off-page. Off-page is one of the hardest ones right now, and this is also impacted by the recent update. So this is all about what's not happening on your website, but what's happening that points to your website. So other websites that are high authority online and have high authority scores and they're relevant to your industry, do they have links that point to you? And looking at your competitors and everyone else in the industry, who has, what kind of links can we get for you in order to build up not just your authority, but also your brand and your recognition, right? So off-page SEO is very similar to digital PR, but it's a little bit more about the technical aspect of the website and the authority score of it versus just the brand recognition in of itself, but they work hand in hand. Additionally, this is where social signals come into play. So a lot of people always ask me about how social media and SEO are related. And we know that social media does not directly impact SEO. So you can't get higher rankings by putting hashtags on your Instagram posts, right? But we do know that having social media profiles, especially things like LinkedIn that give you more authority, will send a social signal to Google telling you that you are an authority and help with your brand authority and therefore indirectly impact your rankings in SEO. So you can add social media profiles to your website with things like schema markup and things like that. Additionally, there's local SEO. If you have a brick and mortar, this is super, super important and actually some pretty low-hanging fruit, I think. If you do happen to have a physical location, having directory listings and a complete and optimized Google My Business profile is one of the best ways to show up when people are around you and search for XYZ near me. Additionally, with local, there's more than just the Google My Business. So if you don't have a brick and mortar, but you have target focus areas, you can do things like localized keyword optimization on your site, as well as a localized page strategy. So say you serve 5 different locations, maybe you have 5 different pages that represent each location and they're optimized per the location. Now, this is where it's important to make sure that you don't have duplicate content. It shouldn't be, the same content on all 5 locations. Each one should be individual to the audience in that location. So those are the main portions of SEO. Aside from that, there's also e-commerce, which is, product optimization, which has a lot to do with schema markup. Mobile SEO, so people searching on mobile versus searching on their computer, they search differently. It's not just about optimizing your website to show up on both and look good. It's also about how people search on mobile. Content strategy, which is one of my favorite ways to increase SEO once we have all these other baseline metrics covered. Building out a content strategy to really fulfill your entire customer journey from awareness to decision, and hitting keywords all within that funnel, driving people down the funnel to that final decision can be huge for not only just increasing your traffic, but also increasing your revenue. And then finally, we have international SEO, which is being able to do keyword research and present your website in multiple languages and meet all the requirements of all the different governments internationally, which is a huge market in and of itself. So as you can see, there's a lot going on with SEO. So knowing that a holistic SEO strategy involves all of these aspects, what does it mean now that we have so many changes happening and such a big recent change? First and foremost, I want to cover the one topic that I said I was going to cover, so I can go into this more, which is EEAT. EEAT is what Google uses as it's one of their quality rater guidelines. So with EEAT, they say, Google says this is not a direct ranking factor in their algorithm. So this isn't like something in their algorithm, but it influences their algorithm. And they use human quality raters to evaluate the quality of your website. And they use that to influence and improve its algorithm. So this is really important for businesses that are, like I said earlier, your money, your life topics, YMYL. And this is content that can impact a person's health, financial stability, safety, or well-being. So if you hear that and you're in an industry where your content or your business impacts one of those things, you are in the YMYL category. And this is one of the most important things that you can do for SEO. All right, so this is super, super important. So they added the first E actually pretty recently. It used to be EAT. It used to be expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. They have recently added another E for experience. And now a lot of that most recent E is, I think personally, because of the rise of AI, but also because they want to make sure that people are actually have direct firsthand experience with the product they're talking about or the audience they're discussing or the topic. So that's the experience piece. It really did impact review websites when this first came out. Then we have expertise, and this is demonstrating your subject matter expertise through depth and accuracy of your content, but also having your credentials on your website. So your about page, we know that the about page should also be about the customer, right? But make sure somewhere on there you have your credentials. And if you have people creating content for you, be sure that on those pieces of content, we've got a little bio, we've got, hey, these people are qualified to talk about this, also citing all of your reputable sources, because this is one of those big ways that Google's trying to combat, false information, especially with, again, the rise of AI or anything like that. So expertise is huge. Authority is going to be, again, getting mentions from other websites, growing your reputation within your industry. I think this is going to be huge with AI coming forward with the way that search might be changing. More on that later. And then trustworthiness. So be transparent about who's behind your content, right? Clear contact information on your page, maintain a positive reputation, and follow ethical content practices, all right? Okay, so that's EEAT. I wanted to make sure I brought that up first because this is super important. Now, the Google update. So as Rachel mentioned, there are so many Google updates. She's probably pretty accurate with that number. There are a ton. The core updates are the ones they let us know about, right? So the core updates, the helpful content updates, the spam updates, there are only so many updates that Google tells us about, but in reality, they do little tweaks every day to this algorithm, right? And so the reason this matters is it's critical for all brands and businesses and organizations to understand what's happening in search results, because these impact your traffic, your conversions, and your bottom line. So your revenue will be impacted by a core update, potentially, if you see any changes to your search results. Here are some examples of core updates. These are just a few. So I guess I like to preface this whole talk about the recent core update with the fact that there's been a ton, right? There's been a ton of core updates throughout the years. And I actually have some links in here. I think we're probably going to share these slides out, but in the bottom right, this little more updates, you can go, it'll take you directly to Google's page where they list all of the updates that have happened that they've brought to our attention, at least, like the helpful content update, the spam update, all of that over the years. So if you want to learn more about those updates and what Google has to say about them, it's all listed right there for you. Now, let's talk about the March update. So this is where we're going to get to the meat of everything. So what was so big about the March 2024 update is this update, unlike some previous core updates, it includes enhancements to several components of the overall core system. So it had multiple updates inside of it, right? It touched on several systems within the core update, and it took several weeks to come out. So if you look back at those other core updates, you'll see they always last about 2 weeks, sometimes a month max. This one, I believe, was a little over 6 weeks. It was a pretty long update. So Google also announced that during this update, it implemented the helpful content update into the core algorithm. So this was the last time that we'll hear about a new helpful content update, because now that is just the way the algorithm works. They're always, always, always going to be including helpful content and evaluating that into their algorithm now, from now on, which is why you can see how EEAT and having, depth and authority is so important. September 2023, I think, was the last helpful content update, and that was a pretty big hit to some sites. Not as big as March, but that was the last time we saw a bigger update. Now, here are the 3 things that the core update focuses on. Now, you can find documentation from Google on their updates online. So they give you all of the information and let you know as much as they will about what has been done. And so here's what they say the newest update involves. So this update, they're looking at relevance and quality by better understanding, user queries, what they're typing in, and then how that relates to the content on your page. They're also looking at site architecture and user experience, like I talked about with technical SEO. So they're looking again at quality, but they're also looking at, when you have your website, what are your folders and subfolders look like? How many clicks does it take to get to the content that the customer needs? And how long will Google take to find that? So site architecture is going to be huge in the future. That's why technical SEO is really important. And then engagement. So adjustments to the way Google evaluates content and user engagement metrics have changed. We don't know a lot of details. That's what we know about the 3 kind of buckets of the new core update. Now, the tricky thing about the March 2024 update, other than the fact that it was huge and totally changed the core algorithm and included the helpful content update, is they ran another update at the same time. And this was the 2024 spam update. So I think a lot of people don't realize there were 2 going on at once. So the spam update, I believe, was March 5th through March 20th, so it was shorter. And the core algorithm update was somewhere around the beginning of March all the way to like April, I think it was 19th, near the end of April, mid to end of April. So while we're doing the core update, we're also doing the spam update. And the spam update basically included a swarm of manual actions. So I'll show a little bit in some future slides, but basically a manual action is when you get a flag from Google that says, hey, you're doing something wrong, we're penalizing you. So they rolled out a bunch of manual actions. At the same time, they also changed their the way that they measure your core web vitals, which is a measurement of your page speed. And they started using basically a different way to measure it at the same time. So there were so many overlapping changes at the same time, which is why this update was such a doozy and why people are having trouble identifying where the issues are and why there was such a heavy impact if there was one. Now, here are the 3 things the spam update looked like to help give us some clues. The scaled content abuse, site reputation abuse, and expired domain abuse are the 3 sections that Google said that it really targeted during the spam update portion. I think this is where people took a lot of hits. I think the mixture of the scaled content and the helpful content in the core just really was a double whammy for people. Scaled content is basically when you take, scaled content at scale, and you're most of the time using something like artificial intelligence to produce low quality content and just, busting out hundreds of articles on your website to try and get more and more volume and more traffic, right? Site reputation abuse and expired domain abuse kind of go hand in hand. Site reputation, you can take the reputation of an old site and try to flip it into something not relevant. and kind of use the reputation to gain more SEO traction. And expired domain, you basically take an old domain and it's expired and you repurpose it into your new website. Now that there's nothing wrong with buying an old domain. That is still a really solid practice for SEO. It's just if you don't do your research and your old domain had a bunch of shady black hat tactics done to it, you may experience quite a bit of penalties if you buy an old domain that had, bad shady backlinks to it. It got a penalization in the past. It had a manual action on it. So it's really important when you're buying a domain, if it has been used before, to do your research and understand what that domain used to look like, or if you can find if it had any manual actions or issues. And that's really hard information to find, honestly. SEOs can usually find quite a bit of it, but it takes some tools and some digging. All right, so some impacts of the 2024 core and spam update. Google announced that they believed these updates would reduce the amount of low quality content that pops up in search engines by 40%. The end result, which they measured after the update ended, was actually 45%. So there was a huge drop in the amount of low quality, unoriginal content that was found in search after these updates. Hundreds of websites were de-indexed, as I mentioned before. I know some people who have multiple websites, and some of them, a lot of small businesses, just fine. But people who did things like niche affiliate websites and use a lot of display ads and tried to create content with AI and things like that, they saw huge drops in traffic. And websites completely de-indexed from Google, meaning Google said, we're going to stop showing you, like, completely. Additionally, there was a study done about all of the sites that were de-indexed. This isn't all of them, but this was, I guess, an index status of about almost 50,000 websites. And of the 837 they found that were de-indexed, 100% of the sites that were de-indexed showed signs of AI-generated content, with 50% of those having most of their posts generated by AI. So I think this says a lot. Also from this study, they found it was about $450,000 of revenue loss across these affected sites. And I think this is huge when we're thinking about AI and scaled content and what this new algorithm update means. So, having heard all of that, what to do if you're hit by the update is probably what you're wondering. You're like, great, this sounds very dark. There's a lot happening. What do I do if my website is one of those websites where all my traffic just dropped? Well, according to Google, there aren't specific actions that you should take to recovery, right? They say that negative ranking impacts may not signal anything's wrong with your pages. I will say at this point after the update, you should be able to see some signs of what's happening. So looking at your past trends, if you see a big drop after the update and you have not recovered, that's where you're going to want to start to ask some questions. Now, if you see a lot of this during the update, the up and down waves, that is totally normal. During a core update, there is going to be a lot of volatility. There are going to be a lot of traffic changes. So not a big deal there. But if you see a huge drop, that's where you should start asking yourself some questions. Now, Google has offered you a list of questions to consider if your site is hit by a core update. And it also states that the next core update, so between update to update, is when you would see like the biggest impact and be able to measure kind of what's happening. But if you ask an SEO, they will tell you that you should start with an audit of your content and maybe a technical audit as well, just because of the site architecture stuff I was talking about earlier and the core web vitals changes. So I would recommend that you audit your site and determine, do you have relevant, high quality content? What is working and what is not? So what content stops? You can actually find a lot of this in Google Search Console. What content stopped getting clicks and impressions? What content, what content dropped? What pages dropped? What is it about those pages that may not be showing EEAT to Google? Or is there anything technically wrong with them? Or is there anything on your site that may be considered spam or unhelpful? I also have a couple of examples here. I have a spam example and an example of a site that really just was missing the mark with where they were in their funnel. So one client I had is in finance industry, but deals a lot with couples finance. And therefore, a lot of their blog articles are related to couples issues and therapy. And they were seeing a ton of traffic before this update. Great blog traffic, but a lot of it wasn't really converting high level awareness stuff. And we were working on building more content in the middle of the funnel. When the update hit, we noticed that those high level awareness pieces about, couples fighting about defensiveness and gaslighting and keywords that really had nothing to do with finances, but had to do with couples fighting, those started to get less and less traffic, and they started to go down and down and down. And that is because Google is probably saying, how is this relevant? So while I think that content is still extremely relevant and important on their site, what we're working on now is building a way to link that content to the other content that has to do with actual solutions and financial solutions and what they do, and trying to kind of prove to Google like, hey, no, actually this is related, and here's how we're going to drive people down the journey. And that's through interlinking, that's through a content audit. There's a bunch of different ways that you can do it, but that's kind of where we are now. And we've started to kind of climb up a little bit in the past like 7 days from it, but it's a slow progress. So that's one example. Another example is I had a client who was in the HR industry, and they had, I had seen they were getting thousands of visits to one biography page for one of their HR professionals on their site. And I audited that page. This is when I was first hired, and they had a hidden blog on there. It was supposed to be a biography page, but it was a hidden blog about weight loss pills. So someone at some point that they had hired in the past, or someone on their team or someone, had gone in and basically done a lot of keyword stuffing about weight loss pills into this author bio. And it was actually bringing a couple thousand visits for a while. Those people were leaving immediately, so it wasn't doing anything for them, but it looked like more traffic. However, they were starting to get hit because of it. So we had to go in, they hired me to help, and we went in and deleted that page and figured out where to redirect and all that stuff. So just a couple of examples of what I've personally seen. Otherwise, a lot of the small businesses, medium businesses, and even enterprise businesses that I work with have seen some really good benefits from the update. If you have helpful content on your site that is built for people and not search engines, chances are you're actually going to benefit from this algorithm update. And if not, let's dig into why not. I did leave a resource here, the 2011 Panda update resources here. And this is basically another huge disruptor way back in 2011. And this is where Google originally offered their advice on how to determine if your content is high quality. So if you want to check out that link to learn more, it has a whole list of questions to ask yourself on, is my content high quality? And what to do next. So they still use that same resource. They have not changed their opinion. All right. With our last few minutes here, I want to discuss a little bit more about AI and the future of search, as well as something called SGE. So when we're looking at AI, there's a lot of questions that have probably arisen from this, right? Like, if 100% of websites that used AI got, de-indexed, maybe I shouldn't use AI to build my content. Not exactly. So Google has advised against publishing AI-generated content without human review and editing. They say, though, that AI is not inherently against their guidelines, but the content has to be evaluated for accuracy. And I'm going to go a step further and say it has to come from your voice. There needs to be originality. Because one of the things, if you start reading through Google's documents, the word they use a lot is original. So they'll say original helpful content. So that in itself is kind of, anti-AI, but not exactly, right? Like, I use AI a lot to generate outlines, create, a bit of content that I'm stuck on, and then I go in, edit, work in my own unique perspective, things like that. So there are a lot of great ways to use AI. But one thing you don't want to be doing right now is creating a blog and copy and pasting it, most likely. Again, they've said it's not specifically against their guidelines, but without human review and editing, not okay. All right. So that's kind of where we are with AI right now. Now, keeping that in mind, how is Google leaning into artificial intelligence? So we're actually going to find out, I think, today, right after this call, in 22 minutes. In 22 minutes, Google has what's called the I/O Developers Conference, which I will be attending, where it's about, I think it's about 2 hours. It's either 90 minutes or 2 hours. And this is where they release the newest and greatest and what's coming next. So I have a strong suspicion that we're going to be talking about the search generative experience today. We'll probably be talking about a bunch of different stuff, and we'll find out more. Unfortunately, this wasn't right before this, but we'll find out more and maybe update. But basically, search generative experience is one of Google's newest AI tools, and many of you may have experienced this already. There's a link here where it says search generative experience, where you can click on it and read the 16-page document that was released in just January of 2024, where they really talk about SGE. Now, I was an early beta tester of SGE, so I've had it on my computer and on my browser for a very long time, and I've seen it go through multiple iterations. But basically, it's being rolled out as an experiment right now. And when appropriate, when you search something in Google, instead of your normal 10 links or your couple sponsored links and then your organic links, you'll see a big snippet of an AI generated answer at the top. And with that snippet, through all the iterations, has come multiple things. Sometimes it's little links to the websites where they're getting the information from. Sometimes it's, discover more. There's also a way to, after the snippet, it'll say ask a follow-up, and it'll have related questions, which looks really familiar if you've Googled things and saw the people also ask, which is like a feature that you can get. So SGE is interesting. It's just a big answer at the top, and they've changed the amount of time it takes. They've been testing. They've looked at how people interact with it. They've used their beta testers to determine what's happening. So I'm assuming we're going to hear more today about what it is. But if you think about the impact of that on SEO, of an AI generated answer at the top, and then all of your business links and your websites, it's huge, right? It's huge. So how do we prepare for that? Well, that's what I'm working on now. And that's why today I'm looking forward to hear what Google I/O says. I have a few different conferences this year. We're all kind of theorizing about it. But one of my theories is brand recognition. I genuinely believe when it comes to language learning models, large language learning models, LLMs, brand recognition is going to be huge, because if you think about where AI is pulling its information from, the more authority you have, the more that brand name is known, the more you're an entity, the more AI is going to be able to pull you in, right? Because you can ask questions to ChatGPT, and if you put in someone they don't know, they're not going to give you the best answer. But if you put in like a brand, a Kellogg, or something that everybody knows, it's going to be able to give you an output. So in my opinion, and a lot of SEO opinions, I believe that brand recognition is going to be very big in the future if SGE rolls through. Now, we're not sure that they're actually going to do this, because the other impact is ads, right? Right now, if you look at the 16-page document, they talk about how ads will be, I think it says, continue to appear in dedicated ad slots throughout the page. So does that mean before, when Google ads were right at the top, now are they going to be way down at the bottom? And what does that do to Google and their revenue? So there's a lot of talk out there to try to figure out, how far is this going to go? Are they going to keep it? Are they going to ditch it? Are they going to change it? How does it work? But right now we're kind of in limbo, and it'll be super important for us to stay on top of this and to have a strategy when whatever choice is made is made. All right. I know that doesn't give you a lot of answers, but that's what we have so far from Google. Okay, so I want to make sure that we leave plenty of time for questions, but let me just go through a little bit of kind of what I've talked about today. So the 3 takeaways that I think that everyone should take from this is the importance of a holistic SEO strategy. Technical, on-page, off-page, local content, e-commerce if you have it, whatever it is, all of it is going to be important to stay at the top of search engines. SEO is changing rapidly, and an adaptable strategy is super, super important. So having a strategic partner that can help you really adapt your strategy as we learn more about what Google does. Focusing on the user experience. Build content and websites for users, not for robots. User-first websites that are fast, easy to navigate, accessible, and helpful are key. And then we follow all the SEO best practices, adding the keywords, the headers, the title tags, the meta descriptions, all of that fun stuff still matters. But user-first content is priority here, and EEAT especially. And then finally, Google updates and AI ? Will search generative experience stick around? If so, it's going to change the field tremendously. I believe brand recognition is going to become more important in digital PR and getting those backlinks. And an SEO strategy needs to shift in order to optimize for whatever the SERP, the search engine results page, looks like in the future. Okay. Ready for questions.
Woohoo! I'm just trying to get my camera on. My technology is not working for me. Heather, I am, for one, so delighted that you are so curious, because there is so much information, and it's overwhelming. So I'm glad that you are here. You know, if you underscored one thing, it is so important to have a high quality search partner, everyone. So make sure you are asking the questions, because there are people that there's still some unethical SEO practices out there. So make sure that you're working with a great partner. Anyway, Heather, we have lots of questions today. And we're going to start. This came from an anonymous attendee, but how do we know our authority score? That's an interesting question.
Yeah, great question. So it's kind of, if you think about authority score, there's different tools that are going to use different numbers, but in general, it's looking at an overall picture, and there are various tools you can use, and I'm happy to provide some of them. Moz is one of them, Ahrefs, SEMrush, any of these, unfortunately, paid SEO tools are going to be a lot of the ways that you know your score, and that score depends on the tool you use, and it's a factor of backlinks and relevancy. And I know that Moz in particular just came out with a new score, which is I think it's like a brand authority score. So it's different than the domain authority score. Now it's like your brand authority. And I think, again, they're kind of on board with me with the whole like brand recognition is going to be very important. So generally, if you work with a quality SEO specialist or a consultant, they will have access to those tools. I pay for a lot of them. So you'll be able to understand what's happening with your score, how it's changing over time.
And you also bring up a very important point, is if you pay for something, you get what you pay for. And if it is free, beware. Same thing with ChatGPT. There's different levels of ChatGPT, the paid and the unpaid. It frightens me that a lot of people are using unpaid ChatGPT, and that they're supposed to get better quality if you pay for it. So just keep that in mind. Not that this is my show, this is your show, but little food for thought. So Valerie Mercurio asks, how does Google index images? Are there any changes there with the new update?
Great question. I haven't seen any changes with images with the new update, but there is, and yes, Google will index your images, and you can check those in Google Search Console. And there are different ways to make sure that they're indexed, especially important ones. So if you have like key images on your page, you can add schema markup to those. And make sure that they're indexed well. There is a newer thing called Google Discover, which we didn't touch on today. And Google Discover is it's in pretty infant stages, but it basically takes a lot of your past search and your kind of individual experience into account and shows you results in a different way. And there is actually, and you can look this up. I have a resource somewhere, but I think if you just Google Discover image optimization, there's actually they give you guidelines on how to optimize an image to show up in Google Discover. So that is a big one. But yes, images can be indexed.
Excellent. Now, obviously, AI is a big topic for everyone. There's lots of questions here regarding AI. How concerning or real is AI a threat to business reaching ideal clients? And should newer features further sequester users? That's an interesting one.
That is an interesting one. I think it kind of depends on, which way Google goes with this SGE. I think that we're going to adapt no matter what, right? Like, I'm excited to figure out what's next. So if search generative experience does come through and we do have that answer at the top, it usually pulls from the top 3. So how it's going to be more important to get top 3. It's going to get a lot more competitive is my opinion. But I think it's going to look a little different. And I also think there may be, while it's more competitive, there may also be more opportunity. So when I mentioned that little, how you get the text and then there's the box that says dive deeper or whatever it is, or additional questions, basically, kind of like ChatGPT. So think of it like ChatGPT. You search for something and then you like reiterate a little bit. I think there'll be a lot more opportunity to show up on those little iterations. So I think having a full content strategy, that's where it's going to be really key. And we may actually see some benefit from that. I'm not sure if that answered the question.
Well, that's a loaded question. So
Yeah.
we only have a little time. So actually, this kind of takes us back to the ABCs of SEO, assuming, we're talking to people that could be implementing SEO as we speak. How would an organization begin to consider implementing an SEO strategy?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So starting with an audit is where you have to know what you're working with first. So both a technical audit and an on-page and content audit are key. So I typically start with a full-on technical on-page and competitive analysis. So I'll do a technical audit to look at all of the technical aspects that I was talking about earlier. And then I'll look at content and where we are in the customer journey, what we have, what we don't have, or if we don't have content, that's fine. And then also competitive analysis. So this is where we look at the authority of your competitors. And that all kind of starts with keyword research, but it also starts with who your competitors are. So I like to take a combination of who the client thinks the competitors are and who I find the competitors are with my keyword research. And I do an analysis and look at backlinks, authority, keywords. Do they have blogs? What do they do? What does their content look like? It's a huge audit that takes everything into account to determine next steps. And from there, it's obviously budget. There's so many aspects of SEO to work on, and prioritizing budget is super, super important. But if you understand that it has to come from all different areas, you can really start to prioritize and break down where to put the money first, if that makes sense.
Excellent. This is a question that I actually never really considered before, but it's very interesting. Yasmin asks, she has 2 companies in the same industry needing a website and SEO ranking. Now that she understands the importance of brand voice and recognition, do you recommend it to be copywritten by 2 different copywriters? I think that's very interesting.
That is very interesting. I mean, if you have a talented copywriter who can write in 2 different voices, then you're fine. I do think, yeah, I mean, are the brands linked? Like if there is a link between the brands, then it doesn't matter as much. But yeah, I think a unique brand voice is very important. But I do think there are talented copywriters who could write in 2 different voices, obviously as well. But that's a great, I never really thought about that.
I never really thought of it that way. And we do have a whole copy team, but it's funny, they can be chameleons, like a good copywriter can be a chameleon. So, but great question, Yasmin. This comes from an anonymous attendee. And, since you talked about how SEO is a moving target and all those core updates, it might require some therapy on my part. But anyway, the question is consistency and frequency of uploading articles to a website still the best strategy for these SEO updates? So content is king. Does it still reign in the domain?
I believe so. Yes. They haven't specifically mentioned anything about consistency, but if you go through the words they use, they talk about relevant and timely and current content. And so if Google sees that you are posting new, fresh content, that is more helpful than an older blog or an older website. Same thing goes for your pages. So if you're not posting content and you're just updating your pages regularly, that will be seen by search engines. And that's always been important. And I think it's still just as important to this day. I mean, if you think about EEAT and you think about experience, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness, I think about timeliness and relevancy and updated statistics and ever-changing news. And it seems like, yes, I think, consistent, frequent, relevant, helpful content would be important.
That gives me a slight bit of agita. But I guess that's why there's firms like ourselves that, you know, write content all the time. But it is, if you're trying to keep up with it all yourself, it's a lot. I mean, you have to keep once you stop writing content, that's like worse than not having any content at all. So
I
um,
will, I will say though, there is one caveat to that. I think with the new update, one thing that might be more helpful than continuing to produce content at the same cadence, if you're kind of in a rut, is to do that content audit and refresh your old content instead. So if you only have so many resources and you're used to posting, you know, 4 to 8 blogs a month, maybe instead you only post 2 new blogs this month and you go back and you refresh 4 blogs. So that's part of a lot of what I do with content strategy too, is I go back and look at content that isn't really working for us anymore and it's just taking up crawl budget, and how do we repurpose that, make it more relevant, make it more, you know, we don't need to reinvent the wheel, we just need to improve and reiterate, and that will actually do wonders for you, maybe sometimes even more than new content.
oh, you just got a pro tip here today, people. That's an amazing tip. So thank you for that. Now, this is actually another so many interesting, thoughtful questions today. WordPress versus workflow. Which do you recommend for a good SEO foundation?
Ooh. I think you could, okay, I'm personally biased towards WordPress. I love WordPress, but I think you can have solid SEO with any CMS. Okay, there's a couple that I don't prefer, but for the most part, content management systems, it's just going to be different. You're going to want to find an SEO that's familiar with, you know, whatever you're using. And then you're going to want to have, you know, a development team on hand that can at least talk to the SEO and understand what needs to be implemented and how. But yeah, I think I've seen Squarespace and Wix outrank WordPress all the time. You know, it really just depends. I think Google is trying to make it more about helpful content. Yes, you're going to have a lot more ability to edit things in certain CMS than another CMS, but at the same time, I think there's opportunity with all of them.
Okay. Well, I think you answered this. You definitely answered this in your talk, but there's always something to elaborate here. And how can I leverage AI to help with blog writing while not affecting my website growth? And I think it's really important to kind of underscore how important it is to have that kind of human intervention in your content.
Totally. Yeah. I like ChatGPT. I've used a few different AI models. I pay for the more expensive one, and I love to come at it from an idea generation standpoint. So I will use it a lot from a content standpoint to generate ideas, to talk about. I like to prime it. So I think it's really important to prime your AI tool. So give it some context first about your brand, about your customer journey, give it whatever you can and get it ready. Like you have to go through a few, this could be a whole presentation in itself, but you go through a few iterations of trying to get it to understand, because it's a learning model. So it's going to start to pick up on your brand voice, on what you're looking for, on your audience, on your customer journey, and then have it help you create outlines, brainstorm documents, things like that. And then I really like to have it create an outline, and then can you expand upon this section and get some really good ideas about how to expand on things. That's how I use it a lot. I don't do a lot of copy and paste from it, but I get a ton of my outlines and ideas from it, because it really does just think of things that I don't even think of sometimes.
You have to be careful about it using vernacular that you don't use. You're like, oh, that's a $10 vocabulary word. I'm not sure I would have that in my content.
Exactly.
So, we were talking about blogs, the importance of blogs. Blogs are the engine in your SEO machine. How many new, Susan asks, how many new published blogs per month do you recommend as a target? Because you were saying 4 and 8, and that was making me sweat.
Okay. Yeah. It completely depends, which I know is the worst answer ever, but that's where the competitive analysis comes into play. So when I take on a new client, typically I look at the competitors in the industry that they've identified and the competitors that I've identified from research. I look at the customer journey. I do what's called a gap analysis to see where there are gaps in the content. And then I figure out, well, your competitors are posting 8 a month and you're posting 1. you're probably not going to catch up there, right? We can try to fill in the blanks and the gaps in other places, but it really does depend. Every industry is different. There are some industries where they don't post any content, especially local SEO. There's a lot of opportunity where you don't necessarily need a lot of blogs because you can get Google reviews, you can do local campaigns, you can do local events and create various pages for that and schema markup. And so it really depends. And also depends on budget. So, figuring out where your resources are and what's optimal and then what you can actually do.
So pay attention to your marketing mix, because if there was one easy answer, everybody'd be doing it.
Yep.
So Yasmin comes back with yet another question, which I think is this is a great question. So many good questions today. What's the process do you recommend when you start a website from scratch? So, are you putting up the wall? Are you putting the electrical up before you put the walls in? We use these analogies all the time on the Paradigm side.
I love that. Yeah. I work with a ton of, I work with Paradigm and a ton of different people, web developers who build websites. And typically what it looks like is I like to be involved in some client discovery, whether that's with the client or with the agency, and get an idea of what we're looking for, what we're looking at, what the budget is. And then it all starts with keyword research and competitive analysis. So I kind of treat an audit and a new website similar in the beginning. We do the keyword research, we do the analysis, we figure out what other people are doing, what's best for the industry, what the customers are looking for, what the budget is, all that. And then I like to provide kind of a sitemap. So it's got basically the full URL structure from homepage to about to this, with all the URLs and all of the title tags, meta descriptions, keywords, header recommendations. I don't write content, but and then we have the content creators, and sometimes I meet with the content creators and we're discussing how the content will flow versus like my SEO elements. And it really is led from an SEO standpoint, but it's a collaboration between the developer, the content creator, the client, and the SEO.
Heather, you are amazing. It has been amazing to have you here. Our time, it is 1 o'clock, and we always like to do our best to end on time. Thank you so much for so much valuable information. If you have questions to our registrants today, you will receive a copy of this if you did not get a chance to listen. This is something I would listen to again and again. So much valuable information. Thank you so much. And please remember to join us for our Business Growth Roundtable every second Tuesday at noon Eastern Standard Time. We are delighted that you spent your time with us here today. Anthony, do you have anything else you want to add before we pop off?
No, I want to thank you so much, Heather. Seriously, that was great information. I truly enjoyed it. And Cal was right. One of the best roundtables in a long time. Seriously. Very good information. Really applause to you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you all. Take care now.